The Stack. People, Business, Technology. With Dan Tomaszewski of Everything MSP.
Hello, everybody. Dan Tomaszewski here with Everything MSP. Welcome to another episode of The Stack, where we focus on people, business, and technology. Each week, we dive into topics that matter most to you in your business. And today, we're going to jump into a great one that we've got lined up here. I am joined by Derik Belair, who's the CEO of Augment. And we're going to go ahead and bring Derik in. There is Derik. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dan. How are you, sir?
I'm doing awesome. It's great to have you here. You know, you have been at the forefront of helping MSPs to not only simplify, but also standardize Microsoft 365 management. And we're going to talk a lot about the challenges MSPs are faced with. And, one of the biggest problems is going to be policy sprawl, kind of the key word that we're going to jump on today, right?
Absolutely. Hot topic.
It is. And, I want to frame this a little bit. MSPs, I hate to call MSP businesses chaotic, but in reality, what I mean by that is there is so much going on. There's so many moving pieces, and it is unlike so many other industries. And, if you're an MSP and you're running multiple 365 tenants, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Because, you've got different Intune policies here. You've got Defender settings there, conditional access rules that might have been set up years ago by another technician and it never looked back, and you multiply that by dozens, of clients, and suddenly you are managing chaos instead of running an efficient and scalable business. And that's what you've come into play here and help us out with. But before we jump into that, I would love for you to give our audience a little background about yourself and what led you to jump into Augment in developing this product.
Well, thanks, Dan. So I started Augment with my business partner, Gavin Garbett. We started this in 2020. And the goal was really to help MSPs really, harness the power of Microsoft and M365 and Intune Defender, and really start to help their customers become more secure. So securing their Microsoft environments, making things more scalable, and ultimately just helping them pivot from, what was always on-prem, local technology, local infrastructure towards cloud. Before I started Augment, I was the very first team member at Enable Technologies. That was back in 2000. And during that time, we really saw, the birth of managed services. We really saw MSPs moving from very traditional models, break fix, time and material, towards managed services. And in that transition, that building that RMM platform, when we sold the business to SolarWinds, we saw that there was a shift happening. There was a shift towards SaaS. There was a shift towards the cloud. And to be honest, this business is really kind of the next evolution. It's still in the same veins of helping MSPs drive profitable, scalable services with a focus on security. And really just helping MSPs do their jobs better by giving them tools and know-how on how they can harness this. So I always say it's a natural sort of evolution of my trajectory in the MSP space.
Yeah. Well, first off, I want to congratulate you on your success, because you mentioned that you kicked off in 2020, probably one of the most challenging timeframes of starting an organization.
Yeah.
And, the fact that you guys were able to launch in that challenging time, and, you are here 5 years later, still making it happen. That is awesome. So
well, that's awesome. It was challenging for everybody. So we shared the challenge with the MSPs because they certainly didn't have it easy either. So
exactly. Well, and if you think about it too, though, it may have been a great time because of the fact that it was a major reset for everybody in all aspects, resetting how we manage our clients, how we manage, being more efficient in the whole multi-tenant, component of it. And, so really, I think, it really is a great time from that perspective.
Well, Dan, you're absolutely right. It was a very challenging time for everybody because the requirements on technology. Everybody went to home. All of a
Yeah.
sudden, it was a bring your own devices. All of a sudden, security had to be rethought because it wasn't about the confines of the building. Now everybody was remote. Everything went to the cloud. So it was a bit of a catalyst for change that was coming anyways. And I like to think that the partners that have really embraced that shift during that time, even though it was chaotic, came out better on the other end. So I think it was good for most of our businesses, challenging, but good in the end.
Yeah. So, Derik, let's start out with some context about policy sprawl, specifically in 365. Why does this create so much of a hidden cost for MSPs?
Right. Well, as you know, for an MSP to build a scalable, profitable business, it's all about consistency in environments, right? They can't have multiple environments configured slightly different because now the technicians are having to understand this customer's environment versus that customer's environment. So, really, standardization is the name of the game. When it comes to Microsoft, as we know, policies is really how you do management and security within Microsoft. But what we found, over the years in building out this platform is that no two customers are identical. There's always some slight variations, some policies that were built a long time ago by potentially an old technician, policies that were built by another MSPs, things that were done in-house. And it's a real challenge for MSPs to take on these customers, promise them a level of service, promise them a level of security, but have to manage environments that are slightly different or slightly adjusted differently because they have different policies configured.
Right.
So what we say is the sprawl of these policies, the uniqueness of the policies customer by customer is really what erodes margin. The consistency in being able to have, a baseline environment across all your customers, that is the name of the game. That's how you build a profitable service offering.
Yeah. And, from a risk perspective, how do you, ultimately, go from a policy drift and inconsistent baselines, put both the MSPs and their clients in that tough spot? So
Well,
how do you
yeah.
policy
Well, the first part of it is to really understand how, what are the policies in place and how they are configured, being able to compare them, against either a baseline or against other customers, really understand where the differences are and either deal with those differences by bringing them back to a baseline or document why the policies are different. It's also about, making sure that you're monitoring the policy for drift. No security policy gets better with time. It always erodes. It always gets worse. So being able to understand where the shift is really, gives you some big advantages. It gives you some huge, tech efficiencies. Your technicians are managing problems, not trying to manage the inconsistencies. You're able to close security gaps very, very quickly, which is also incredibly important. And it makes, anything around compliance so much easier because now, again, you are establishing that baseline that is, against a compliance standard. You're not having to chase this thing down, having to do manual configuration all the time. So it's a huge savings for the MSP.
So, at the end of the day, we all would love every client to have the same policies. Everything's just easy. We wave that magic wand and everything's streamlined and consistent. But like you mentioned, there are going to be some inconsistencies, but with the right tools, we have that visibility, right?
Well, that's correct. That's correct. So, the way we always, when we engage with an MSP, we always say the key is not to make every customer the same because there's uniqueness in that customer's environment and how they do business. But the key is to really be able to have a standard baseline that you as an MSP feel comfortable supporting. So making sure that all of your customers are at a certain security baseline that you can at least rely on the fact that that is in place all the time, that it is being monitored for drift, that is being monitored for change. From then on, then it's really about understanding what are those customers' unique requirements, and then how do we potentially create different baselines for different types of customers, either very data-oriented customers versus, customers that are all about, access and flexibility, customers that are all within one physical geo versus customers that are all over the world. So what we say to MSPs is, definitely that efficiency piece, that being able to create those baselines, that equals margins right away. Like that is just a huge margin play for sure. The consistency is a huge a huge driver of revenue also, because again, the technicians are dealing with the problems, not necessarily having to address unique individual requirements, and it makes it a lot more profitable. So it's that those policies, reining those in, documenting them, and understanding who's got what and why, that is the key for MSPs today.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, that efficiency component of it, so much does change when an MSP actually does standardize and automate, but not only just Intune, but Defender and conditional access policies across their tenants. And maybe we get a little more granular from that perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when we engage with a partner, the first thing we do is really help them understand, where are all of their customers, and we'll leverage the Microsoft Secure Score as a huge sort of benchmark. It's kind of that universal score that Microsoft provides, that MSPs and customers can rally around. It's not something we came up with, but it is somewhat independent from Microsoft. We try to understand and help the customers understand, what are the building blocks of that score? What makes that score go up or down? How is it built? Where are the gaps in that score? We understand what are the posture items and what are the policies in place that will have a positive impact on security. Because again, no two policies is the same. And while you can invest a lot of work in one specific area, you might actually be over investing while other areas of security are left sort of wide open. So we always say, make sure to lock the doors and close the windows before, maybe addressing tiny little minute pieces in there, because it's never ending.
Right.
And then once you've got that done, then it's really matching security to productivity. Because again, the key is not to make the customer's environment so highly secured that you lose functionality, but to understand the balance, the risk, and the tolerance for risk that both the MSPs and the customers are willing to do, are willing to have. And then from there, it's really just building blocks of security. So start with the things that will have, the highest level of impact to the environment, to security, to the security score. Start to implement those over time, and then make your way through the list. I'll say it's sort of a never-ending list, because you can go as far as you want down security, but understand with your customer what is that baseline of security and risk that you're willing to accept, and then making sure that doesn't change over time. That is your sort of your fortress, and then from there you can build upon that.
So those are all incredible things that we see from our perspective with our clients, and how we're positioning this. Of course, it goes well beyond operational benefits. So how can an MSP use that secure score, use the standardized reporting to prove their value to the client and stand out from competition?
Well, it's a great point. So, the first thing we say is making sure that you and your customer can share on a common set of knowledge, common set of reports. So you understand, you both have access to the data to show where you started and where you are today. The key is also to understand the gaps. So understanding where you want to be and building out a roadmap of services that are going to be delivered by the MSP to the customer, and how that improved security is going to manifest itself day to day. Again, the secure score is great for that, because it gives something for both the MSP and the customer to rally around. You can see your score growing. And then from there, it's really making sure that you're plugging the gaps, making sure that you're monitoring and managing what happens monthly, how things get better or worse over time. And if you do all of that, a couple of things will happen is all of a sudden, like magic, security will get incredibly better. The trust and the relationship between the customer and the MSP will get better, because now it's not just scaring the customer into telling them about the security stuff and not being able to show them tangible proof. It's being able to show them a monthly report, a threat report, a security score report, so that they can see that security is improving. And if you do all of that, again, you really create a value relationship with your customer. There's a lot of trust there, and you create a moat around that customer that's very hard for another MSP to displace. And that's the thing with security is so much of it is from the end customer's perspective. is intangible. They're all things that are happening in the back. So we always say that the more you can bring security from a metrics perspective to the customer, the more likely he is to buy into it. Because let's face it, every customer is being pitched some kind of a security service by everyone everywhere. So they know they need to do it, but it's hard to quantify it sometimes.
Right, right. And, and I go back to my early days when I first started an MSP back in the early 2000s. And, our tagline is, was always proactive technology management. And, and I think we've lost sight of that over the years, not, us in general, but across the board as MSPs is, we've lost sight that, MSPs, we got to remember that it's all about being proactive, and we're moving away from that reactionary. So with that being said, how does an MSP, move this overall management from being that reactive support to a productized, profitable service offering?
Well, so, every MSP that we do business with, we always say, the first step is auditing the environment, creating a roadmap for how, security is going to improve, making sure that you monetize it two ways. One is obviously through projects. So we're going to bring you up to our baseline. We're going to improve your security dramatically, and here's everything we're going to do. And then after that, it's a managed service of a reoccurring service offering.
Yeah.
But we always say to the MSPs, the easiest way to do that is make sure that you tell a very visible story around security, that it's not just a behind the scenes, we're going to do things that, trust me, it's going to get better, but that you make it very, very visible for them. And that you can show progress. Customers want to see that they are making progress on the security front, not just it's an ocean of security threat and we can never get a handle on it, but that there is a real progress happening, not just work behind the scenes. And then, what we like to say is that there's a value in telling a risk reduction story, in saying, here's where you were, here's, where your company was from a threat perspective, here's everything that was going on. So, here's all the doors and the windows that were open, security doors and windows that were open, and here's what we've done. So we have, reduce your security exposure, and we are continuing to do so. And while maybe you'll never be at the end of it, we'll show you how you've made significant improvement, and then how we're monitoring it monthly to make sure that it doesn't get worse, it simply gets better. So I think if you're able to tie that together, you really end up with a really good monetizable story pretty quickly.
And at the end of the day, I mean, you hit all these check boxes. Number one, becoming more efficient, more productive, more profitable, delivering a better client experience, and also being more secure. I mean, I think you hit every one of those boxes, and that's huge. And so, I mean, it's not just about the operational efficiency, it's about the profitability, it's about the security. I mean, it's just so much that comes out of that. And the investment, the return on that investment is multifold.
Well, absolutely. And the beautiful thing is, every MSP today is in the Microsoft business, directly or indirectly. Most of them are selling Microsoft licenses, deploying Microsoft licenses. They're doing help desk services around provisioning and deprovisioning accounts. So every MSP is in the Microsoft business, directly or indirectly. Every customer, expects that their Microsoft environment, which is the center of their universe, is going to be secure and managed. A lot of them wrongfully think that Microsoft is going to do it for them. So I think there's some education around what will Microsoft do and won't do. What do your licenses give you access to? But then once you really, embrace the fact that you, as an MSP, are in the Microsoft business, you are in the security business, it becomes very easy to monetize that offering, because again, customers understand it. If you say, you will buy the license from me, I will deploy them, I will get them secure, and I'll monitor the security of it, it tells a very coherent story. And I would say, as long as, to your point, as long as the MSP can do that efficiently, doesn't need to start hiring resources, but can have technicians today do that work in a very repeatable, scalable model, then you've got a recipe for a lot of margins, like a good, strong service offering with a lot of margins.
Yeah. I mean, we know that we can't buy time, but we can get time back, right? So, and that would be the way to do it.
Absolutely. And there's a real shortage of labor out there. MSPs are struggling like everybody else to find good, strong
Right.
Microsoft security talent. It's just tough out there for sure.
Absolutely. And,
Yeah.
so before we wrap up, I know you guys have a special offer for our listeners. You guys are offering a free Microsoft 365 security report that shows the tenant secure score and also highlights some gaps around security policies. Can you elaborate on this a little bit?
Yeah. Well, the what we tell every MSP is the easiest way to start having a conversation with your customer is to have data. So how is the environment configured? What are the threats? What is the security score? And it's the first step. So what we've done is we've said every MSP sign up with us. You don't have to give us any money. If you just sign up with us, check out a demo, do a trial, we'll leave the account open for you, regardless if you pay us or not. And we'll allow you to be able to run Microsoft Security and Threat Report that you can use for your existing customers, that you can use for prospects. And it'll give you a really good sense for how the environment is functioning, how secure it is, what are the threats out there. If for anything, it's a phenomenal talking point internally for the technicians to look at the threat report of all their customers. So you'll be able to do it multi-tenant, but it's also a great way to have a pretty meaningful conversation with a customer to say, hey, listen, we ran this, on your environment. Turns out you're doing fantastic. You don't need us. Or more likely, there's some gaps in here that we should be addressing because these are low-lying things, security things that we can do that will make a huge difference. So it's super valuable. It's easy to use. We give it away for every MSP to use. So I'd say if you're interested, just check us out, come on the website and just sign up and run the report and see what happens. We'd love to hear how that report worked out for you. And we'd love to show you how to use it to monetize.
That's awesome. And one last thing I'd love to hear a little more on is your new Intune policy manager that's rolling out.
Well, Intune is huge. So, we started with 365, quickly moved into Defender, and now into Intune. I would say that there's an incredible amount of interest from the MSP channel to really embrace Intune. I'd like to say it's about time because it is such a powerful tool. But having said that, it can be complicated. What we've leveraged is the way that we look at our alerting, the way we look at our reporting, our policies, our posture, our drift, and really just applied it to that exact same, the same way we do it today, but for Intune. So think about understanding how Intune is configured, where are the security gaps, what are the reports, how to apply. We've really tried to make it very, very simple and multi-tenant for you to manage Intune. And it's gaining a huge amount of traction in the marketplace, and we're super excited about it.
That is awesome. Derik, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. For anybody that's out in our audience wanting to learn more about Augment, you can go directly to their website, augment.com. And remember, there's 2 T's at the end, and you can check them out there. Of course, if you are on the everythingmsp.com website, you can also search for Augment, and you can connect directly to them from our site as well. It's been a fantastic conversation. I think this is a big wake-up for good wake-up call for MSPs, that are, struggling under the weight of policy sprawl, and definitely a way to help address that. And Derik, thank you again. I appreciate it. For everybody out there, have a great rest of your day, and we will talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for listening to The Stack.